Known for its brutal tactics and widespread influence, 1000s-13 has become one of the most feared criminal organizations in the world. With roots tracing back to Los Angeles in the 1980s, this transnational gang now operates across multiple continents, leaving a trail of violence and fear in its wake. But behind the tattoos, the notoriety, and the headlines lies a complex story of migration, survival, and systemic failure. Origins of MS-13, a legacy of war and displacement. The origins of MS-13 are deeply intertwined with the political turmoil and violence that plagued Central America during the late 20th century, the 1980s. El Salvador was embroiled in a brutal civil war between the US-backed government and leftist guerrilla groups. This conflict displaced hundreds of thousands of Salvadorans, many of whom fled to the United States seeking refuge. Upon arriving in Los Angeles, these refugees faced immense challenges. They encountered poverty, discrimination, and hostility from established gangs such as the Bloods and Crips to protect themselves and preserve their cultural identity. Salvadoran immigrants began forming small, informal groups. These groups eventually coalesced into what would become Mara Salvatrucha. Initially, MS-13 was not a criminal enterprise, but rather a social network, a way for Salvadoran youth to connect, share experiences, and defend themselves against rival gangs. However, as tensions with other gangs escalated, MS-13 adopted increasingly violent tactics. By the early 1990s, the gang had transformed into a highly organized criminal organization, engaging in drug trafficking, extortion, human smuggling, and murder. Structure and symbols. A decentralized network, MS-13 operates through a decentralized structure, with local cliques functioning semi-independently while adhering to shared codes and traditions. Each clique is led by a palabrero, who serves as the group's leader and enforces discipline among members. Despite this decentralization, all cliques remain loyal to the overarching ideology of Mara Salvatrucha. Members of MS-13 are easily identified by their distinctive tattoos, often covering their faces, arms, and torsos. These tattoos typically include symbols like MS-13 or Mara Salvatrucha. The number 13 corresponds to the letter M in the alphabet and reflects an alliance with the Mexican mafia, which controls much of the prison system in California. Tattoos serve as both a badge of loyalty and a permanent mark of membership, making it nearly impossible for members to leave the gang without facing severe consequences. Initiation into MS-13 is notoriously violent. Prospective members must either endure a brutal beating for 13 seconds or commit a violent act to prove their loyalty. Once initiated, members are bound by a strict code of conduct that emphasizes loyalty, secrecy, and vengeance against rivals. Breaking these rules often results in death, ensuring that members remain tightly controlled. Expansion across borders. From Los Angeles to the world in the 1990s, U.S. immigration policies played a pivotal role in spreading MS-13 beyond American borders. As part of efforts to combat gang violence, the U.S. government implemented aggressive deportation policies, sending undocumented gang members back to their home countries. Many of these deportees were unfamiliar with life in Central America and brought with them the gang culture they had developed in Los Angeles. In El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, countries already struggling with poverty, corruption, and weak institutions, MS-13 found fertile ground to expand. Gang members recruited disenfranchised youth, offering them a sense of belonging and protection in exchange for loyalty. Within a few years, MS-13 had established a stronghold in Central America, where it began to exert control over entire neighborhoods and communities. Today, MS-13 operates in at least 46 U.S. states and numerous countries, including Mexico, Canada, Guatemala, Honduras, and even parts of Europe. The gang's activities generate millions of dollars annually through extortion, drug sales, human trafficking, and illegal firearms trade. Its presence has destabilized entire regions, creating climates of fear and insecurity, violence, and impact. A culture of fear, MS-13 is notorious for its extreme violence, which serves both as a tool of intimidation and a means of asserting dominance. Members often use machetes, knives, and firearms to carry out executions, sending a chilling message to rivals and civilians alike. Their motto, Mata Roba Viola, underscores their willingness to resort to brutality to achieve their goals. The gang's reach extends into schools, neighborhoods, and even law enforcement agencies, making it difficult to dismantle. In El Salvador, entire regions have been effectively controlled by MS-13. With residents forced to pay protection money or face dire consequences, those who refuse to comply risk being targeted for assassination or having their families harmed. 1013's activities have contributed to some of the highest homicide rates in the world, particularly in Central America. Between 2000 and 2015, El Salvador consistently ranked among the most violent countries outside of active war zones. The gang's influence has created a climate of fear, stifling economic growth and driving mass migration to the United States and other countries. Efforts to combat MS-13, challenges and criticisms. Governments and international organizations have launched numerous campaigns to curb MS-13's influence. In the United States, federal agencies like the FBI and ICE have targeted high-ranking members through task forces such as the Transnational Anti-Gang Initiative. Similarly, in Central America, governments have implemented crackdowns, deploying military forces to combat gang activity. However, these efforts have faced significant criticism for being overly aggressive and ineffective in addressing root causes. Mass incarcerations and militarized policing have done little to dismantle the gang's operations. Instead, they have often led to overcrowded prisons, where MS-13 members continue to recruit new followers and plan criminal activities. Experts argue that a more comprehensive approach is needed, one that addresses the underlying conditions that allow gangs like MS-13 to thrive. Poverty, unemployment, lack of education, and systemic neglect are key factors driving youth recruitment. Social programs aimed at rehabilitating former gang members and preventing youth from joining gangs have shown promise. Though funding remains limited, a complex legacy. Beyond the stereotypes, MS-13 is more than just a gang, it's a symptom of deeper societal issues. Its rise reflects decades of political instability, economic inequality, and systemic neglect. For many young people in impoverished communities, joining MS-13 represents a grim choice between survival and starvation. While the gang continues to pose a significant threat, there are glimmers of hope. Grassroots organizations, religious leaders, and activists are working tirelessly to break the cycle of violence. Education, job training, and community empowerment are seen as key tools in dismantling the gang's grip on vulnerable populations. For example, in El Salvador, programs like Yo Cambio aim to rehabilitate former gang members by providing them with skills, training, and employment opportunities. Similar initiatives in the United States focus on mentoring at-risk youth and offering alternatives to gang involvement. While progress is slow, these efforts demonstrate that change is possible with sustained investment and commitment. Conclusion. Toward a safer future, MS-13 stands as a stark reminder of how desperation and marginalization can fuel cycles of violence. Its history is intertwined with the struggles of migration, displacement, and systemic injustice. As nations grapple with the challenge of combating MS-13, the focus must shift from punishment alone to addressing the underlying conditions that allow such organizations to thrive. Only by investing in education, economic opportunities, and social programs can we hope to build safer, more equitable societies for future generations. The fight against MS-13 is not just about dismantling a gang, it's about creating a world where no one feels compelled to join one.